Opinions expressed by the talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet. From the tinfoil and lead line broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
All right. I just got that today, Rob. And if anyone's watching, and I do have a few people who are watching, I'm speaking with Doug Washington. I already screwed up that name. And I'm sitting here with Doug Washington, and I just had my new intro, and we're gonna smooth that out in the end. I just received that today, along with that video clip that you just saw. Were you able to see that video clip?
Yeah, looks great. Looks great. It's misleading though. It said that nothing you say is reflective of anybody anywhere, and here's the catch. And it said and anywhere else on the planet. Yet your intro shows outer space. So somehow I feel you haven't necessarily indemnified aliens for things you may say on air.
I really haven't, and I want to be all inclusive because we're all about inclusivity here. So you're absolutely right. I may have to have Marty redo that for me, including aliens, anyone, anywhere in the universe. Yes,
in the universe. Yeah, known universe.
Known universe. That's right. So how you been, man?
Good, really good. Been busy. It's always outdoorsy things to do, and that's kind of what we do, a lot of outdoorsy stuff. We went out fishing last night. We caught, one of my fishing buddies and I, we went out last night and we caught, which I think we can certify this as the last fish caught in America in 2023, 30 seconds before the strike of midnight. And because on the continent we are the most western, so we celebrate New Year's last, and 30 seconds before the stroke of midnight we caught the last fish in America. And then 2 minutes after midnight, we caught the first rockfish on the West Coast. So we broke records.
Where were you at when you were doing this?
In the bay. It was freezing cold. It was foggy. It was, we're out there and it's like, I can't believe other people don't do this. How come no one else is out here? And then we just go quiet for a moment. It's like, well, like the danger part and everything. But
yeah. Hey, if you're not living dangerously, you're not having any fun at all, right?
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Well, that's good to know because you're out there fishing at midnight on New Year's Day, on New Year's Eve. I can almost guarantee you're like a million gazillion to one odds that you're the only person that would be out there. Were there anyone else out there?
No. Everybody's smart enough not to be out there.
Oh, well, that's okay. It's funny. I woke up, it was about 4 a.m. and normally from my house, you can't hear the ocean, but you could hear the ocean. I don't know what the hell was going on out there last night, but it was roaring.
It was a big northwest swell that was pounding on those beaches. And, if it was a west swell, it would have affected us and maybe precluded us from going out last night. But being northwest, we had some protection. And if you look at the People's Republic of California, they've been getting hit hard with this same system. Big swells, 20, 30-foot swells. And people are people. You can tell them, you can spoon feed them, you give them all the information they want in the world, and you can't necessarily teach them. And a lot of folks have been going to the beaches in California, like, let's check out the giant man-eating swells that everyone's saying stay away from. People have been swept out to sea. People have been rescued. Cars are getting sucked out. We had an incident here last week, I want to say, a young girl in Florence on the beach. One of these waves came in and rolled a log on her. I need to look into it more. Rolled a log on her, but she's okay. Typically when that happens, it's a fatal. Nobody walks away from that, but fortunately she did.
Yeah, and that's someone who's had to take kids out to the beach. That was my greatest fear because you just can't keep an eye on them all the time. It's humanly impossible. And you've got 8-year-olds. You got 4 or 5 of them running out there. Yeah, that's something. It's people. it's like when they go to the desert. You'll always get Yankees who come out to the desert in the middle of New Mexico and think, hey, we're going to go on a day hike. And the next thing you know, they're stuck out there at night and they don't realize, sure, it was 80, 90 degrees in the daytime, but all of a sudden you're freezing your ass off in the middle of the night. And so people don't realize the extremes that are out there in the desert. And I don't think they realize the extremes when they come out here. The Yankees come out here and they go swimming in the ocean.
Absolutely correct.
We did. I had Rod, his plan for coming on at the end of the hour. He was sitting in his chair. I can see his camera from here. There he is. Maybe we'll pull him on in here and see if he can hear us. Hey, Rod, can you hear us?
I can, Rob. Hello, Doug.
How you doing, sir?
I'm very well. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure's mine.
So how was your trip there from yonder?
Oh, it was good. We had a successful journey and easy trip, and a chance to see some old friends in Washington, and so that was real nice. And we were going to do a year-end review because there was a lot of news stories out there that you forget about that happens at the beginning of last year. And one of the stories that I thought was interesting that they had put out just recently was, I don't know if you guys heard about this bacterial infection that's spreading throughout Portland.
It's called Portland. I thought Portland was the infection.
No, this is even worse. This is serious. It's Portland, Oregon metro area is experiencing an influx in cases involving a highly contagious bacteria infection. And this is why I was talking about it. It's described by the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention as a diarrhea germ and is hitting the counties of Multnomah, Washington, and Clackamas hard at year's end. Which is a strange terminology that they would put it that way.
Yes.
But the bacteria, which causes about 450,000 infections nationally, leading to about 93 million in direct medical costs, is spread in a variety of ways, from transferring bacteria from hands to mouth after touching objects to a transfer from fecal matter through male sexual intercourse. Symptoms include bloody and prolonged diarrhea that can last more than 3 days, fevers, stomach pains, and feeling an urge to pass a stool when the bowels are empty. Doesn't that sound wonderful?
I'm going to put that in my little ledger of things I didn't need to know.
But this is the whole thing. Yeah.
From that story, though, it sounds like the disease is pretty avoidable, is it not?
Well, I don't know if you're in Portland. Everything's covered with crap out there. It's, you go into a restaurant and you would hope that the people who are serving your food wash your hands. But you think of all the stuff that they step on when they're walking through the city of Portland, and then that transfers to the floor, that transfers to other stuff, and then they might touch it. And I was reading this and thinking, this is going to be the new, because of the way things are, this is going to be the new COVID virus that's going to spread, but it's going to be a diarrhea bacteria, and we're all going to be seriously hurting.
I was, and still kind of am, an absolute germaphobe. One of the things I hate most in the world, if I'm at a restaurant and I need salt, and I look at that salt shaker, and they're never cleaned. And I remember when COVID first hit and everybody started doing the quote unquote protocols. And you'd go to some restaurants and they'd have little signs that say, after every guest, we now completely sanitize the tables and all the, and it's like, wait, y'all weren't doing this to begin with? That was the most horrifying thing for me. I just assumed that we were clean as a culture, but apparently not. Now, when COVID was going on, I just got so fed up with it. Like, I would have licked door handles. I'd like, if someone dropped a comb on the ground, I'd put it in my mouth. I mean, I was just like, here, I'm going to show you, I'm not going to die from the COVID. And now that that's all over, I'm back to being a germaphobe again. I always play the opposite of what modern culture is.
I just can't picture you as a germaphobe, Doug. I just can't see it. Doug Washington, the man I know, he would never be a germaphobe. I don't know. What the hell's the matter with you, man? I
will stick my hands in guts. I will pull out gore. I will pull people out of things and places that I will do all kinds of things. But that salt shaker and the door handles, people are nasty and gross.
So I was thinking, the way we're doing this podcast, you should start a new podcast just called Doug Washington. Get a title for it and just do a whole Doug Washington thing.
Well, and now it's like, you're not on KWRO right now. You've moved on to bigger and better things. So I don't have that competition. And by the way, it's funny because we've got Rob, and Rod, and I've been accused of being both of y'all on numerous occasions, and I'm sure vice versa. It's like, oh yeah, you're running for the you're running for political office. No, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, you got the radio show on KW. Oh, you got the restaurant. Like, no, man. How do people not know who we all are right now? What you have done here, Rob Taylor, is cause the greatest amount of confusion that's ever existed locally. Yes. So do I switch my name back? Do I switch back from Doug Washington, or do I stay Doug Washington?
I would almost recommend you switch your name back, because there are leftists who are watching this and their brain is just. We
don't want to hurt them.
Yeah, it's just overwhelming for them. I told the story, and I think Rod was on the radio. I can't remember if you were there or not, Rod, but my neighbor had come out and she goes, Rob, I might owe you an apology because I was really talking bad about you. And she was talking shit about Rod, but she was, referring to me and telling all the neighbors. She was going around the neighbors, oh, Rod's an insurrectionist, and finally I said, you do know that's a commissioner who's a completely different person. And I support him, but I think it's horrible that you're going around talking about me and trying to say it's Rod. Yep. I don't know, Rod, you have that kind of experience yourself?
That happens all the time. I swear, every single week, multiple times.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
It's part of the gig, but it's a funny thing. And, it's all because of your notoriety, Rob, that it, really, that's what that was the catalyst for all of this. But
that guy started it all.
Yeah. It's true. And I remember years ago when I first met Rod, he would tell me, I'm getting complaints in my mail from you. And it's like, sorry, that's going to happen. But that was, and we still get complaints. I want to put this up on the screen here. Let's see if I can get this. Oh boy, new controls. Ed Glazier. I'm sure all of you have had the pleasure of dealing with Ed Glazier, and he has been making comments already for the show. And there's one of the here it is. Can you guys see that?
Look. Yeah. I don't even know the guy, and that's so funny. Looking forward to hearing from Friends of Nazis. Rob Gonzarg, how are your American Fronts pals doing? I don't even know what the guy's talking about. He's mentally unstable. He's obviously a drug user, and he has an agenda. I don't know the guy from anything. If I saw him on the street and he said, "Hey man, can you help me for a second?" Unless he was a scabby bum, I'd probably help the guy out. But these people are fanatical and radical, and they try to imprint that onto us.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, him being a Nazi, he's a National Socialist. He's calling us a National Socialist when he's an actual commie socialist.
Understood. Okay.
So, Rod, what you've dealt with this guy, haven't you?
I don't think I've actually had any direct interface with Ed. I know I kind of have secondhand, and he's always come across to me as pretty confrontational and but the reality is I put out there an extension for an open conversation with anybody, anytime. Well, not anytime, but but I'll talk about anything. Right?
Yeah. That's something I know about you, Rod, is that you're someone who always tries to reach out to the other side. I know you've had conversations with people like David Jennings, who is one of the best leftists to talk to because he's very calm, he's even keeled, and he's a great guy to discuss things with, even though I don't agree with a lot of the things he's saying. Right. And I'm sure you know about Mary Gedry and all the articles she's written about both of us. Have you had conversations with her, and how has that gone? Because I haven't spoken to her in years.
I've only had really, I think only two really brief interfaces with Mary. And the second one was was not really adversarial because we were. That was during the town hall on the wind energy question. That was at the the Sawdust Theater. So but Mary's Mary. She's quite contrary, and I wish it were not so, but whatever. People will have their own. But yeah, David Jennings, great guy, and very reasonable, and very quite left of where you and I would be, where we would all three be. But you can talk to the guy, and I've heard good things from David, and I think hopefully he's maybe learned a thing or two from what I've said as well, and that's true with the other people that we've engaged from the other side of the aisle. But it's when you start off calling your opposition a Nazi. Well, maybe we are opposed on some things, but maybe we share some values too. So, and I don't know, explain to me where the principles of a free market, of a free people, for self-determination, free land and property ownership, freedom to succeed or fail on your own merits. How is that Nazism? I don't understand.
No.
That's, I never got that either. And I have explained this to people, especially young people, that during the protests in Weimar, Germany, before it went back to being Germany, the Weimar Republic, there were the National Socialists, who were the fascists, and then you had the International Socialists, who were the communists, who were fighting each other. And one of the people that was like all of us, who believed in freedom, free market, he believed that capitalism is the only way to enlighten and enrich people. And that was Ludwig von Mises. And he was a Jew from Germany, and he presented to the German government before Hitler was ever installed that the only way for Germany to pull its way out of the depression that it was suffering is to focus on free market tenets instead of using the corporatism that Hitler was using, and using the buildup of the military, which always brings in money and stuff for countries. And that's what I'm seeing now in America, is that we have people who are fascist. I mean, there are fascists in America, and then you have the leftists, and we saw all of 2020 was these leftists. And then you have people like us who are saying, whoa, wait, what's wrong with the free market? Because you can do whatever you want to do in a free country under a free market system. And yeah, Rod, I completely get what you're saying. I don't understand where these people they lose that.
Yeah, really. And to the contrary, it seems like the Ed Glazers of the world are extremely demanding and militant in their demands that really aren't necessary. I mean, I don't want to do anything to impinge on Ed's freedom to believe whatever he wants to believe,
Right.
But
that's the difference. And that's the difference. These guys do not want to sit down and talk. They do not want to have open dialogue. You talked about the one, he said he was a socialist. The gentleman, he said he's great to talk to. He's a good guy. I've met a lot of people in my business over the years, and some of them have been just so opposed to what my belief system is in terms of politics. But yet we have these great relationships. We've even had occasion to go out fishing together, and we just agree to disagree, and we can see past that. But a lot of these people, these radical nut jobs, they're rabid, they're ravenous. They cannot get the hate. They fomented so much hate in their minds that they can't clear their minds of it. I've had a lot of these people reach out to me, stalk me on social media and whatnot. And I've always said, I will sit down and have an open and decent dialogue, if you will. And they always say, come back with, I don't talk to Nazis. Well, so why are you talking to me then? If you think I'm a Nazi and you say don't talk to Nazis, why are you talking to me? I'm the furthest thing from a Nazi. But these people are the closest thing that we have to Nazis. It's a bizarre time we live in. It's a bizarre time we live in.
The Transformer dude, old Cameron Langley, you always try to engage him, and he'd no, I don't talk to Nazis, and it's like, really, pal, that's what you're gonna do. You're just gonna cut me off, call me names, and then tell everyone else what a bad person I am. And I still have people who I don't even know who think I'm a fascist, a Nazi, and I'm willing to bet there's people out there who believe that about both of you as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What, Rod, I'm sorry. You're going to be deciding tomorrow, the Board of Commissioners, they're going to be putting up a new chair for the board. I would think that you're probably going to be sitting as the new chair of the board. Is that going to give you a little bit of different perspective?
Well, I'm certain that it will. I don't know if it will change my perspective. It will change the, it'll change some options, but I don't anticipate a lot of huge, big change that, so, well, we'll see.
Well, there's one of the things that you do control is the agenda. You get to decide who's on the agenda, who's not on the agenda. And I think that's something that's very pivotal when you're talking about trying to get people you want to hear that the other commissioners might not want to hear. And I don't know, the board itself, normally everyone's pretty agreeable and will let anyone put anything on the agenda, but it is the chair who decides that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's true, but I don't know that that's been an issue at all that I'm aware of. If there's a reason to put somebody on the agenda, then certainly that can happen. And that only takes one commissioner. We don't have to have consensus to put something on the agenda.
I noticed you got like 5 things on the agenda. It's going to be a real short meeting, it looks like.
Yeah, that's what I expect.
Yeah, I'll see you. That's tomorrow at 9:30. If anyone wants to attend in the Owen Building, 201 North Adams in Coquille at 9:30 in the morning. And if you show up, please, sign up to speak. Make sure your voice is heard. And our commissioners are probably the best at letting our voices be heard. But Rod, what do you see as some of the changes? What do you think is going to happen in 2024 that didn't happen in 2023? Because I'll be honest with you, after 2020, I was expecting another barrage of people destroying things, the riots, the whatnot. And I think that going into 2024, the one thing that's the same about 2024 and 2020 is we've got Donald Trump running for president, and I think that may bring out the loonies again. Where are you on that?
Well, I think that you're right. That certainly is going to be one dynamic. I think that we have the potential to see a lot of other dynamics come to play as well. It's a volatile time, and it's a time of great peril right now, and we all need to be aware of that, and we all need to be preparing for the provision for ourselves and our families, and we all need to be girding up our loins to anticipate anything that might happen, because there are many dangers potentially facing us in this coming year, and the list is long, but that's what I anticipate on a global and a national scale, and that certainly will affect us here at the county level. It's we've got a difficult task ahead of us with determining what we're going to do with the budget. we're facing a potential $4 million deficit. And that's going to be a very difficult and painful gap to fill. So, potentially painful. We're hopefully we will come up with some way to mitigate some of that pain, and we'll see where we get.
I got a question for you, just because of the video that you have. You've got like a mid screen. It doesn't take up the full screen like me and Doug's screens. It seems like we're taking up the full screen. Are you on your phone?
I am.
Okay, that explains it. I don't know what phone he's using, but that is some incredible stuff. You've got a great picture, Rod. The audio is a little bit weak, but it's not bad. We can still hear you. Can you hear him, Doug?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I have going in my favor right now is I've got the earpiece in and the neck piece tethered to the phone. So instead of actually going through the air to the phone, it's actually just right in here. It's picking up vibrations on the throat for the voice, and then I hear you in my earpiece. So it gives you more of a studio effect.
Is that a plug-in or a USB?
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. Oh, I got it. All right. The technology stuff, it's amazing what they can do.
Oh, it changes every week. You can't keep up with it. You just have to be happy with what you have and use it.
I bought a camera and it was recommended to me for this event. And then someone else said, no, this is the latest, greatest camera you should have got. And it's like, damn. It has
Don't listen.
on it.
Don't listen to any of them. It's like fishing. It's just like, oh, you got to use this lure. You got to use that lure. It's like, no, just whatever works. And you'll figure it out on your own. And everybody's taste is different, even with electronics. Like I say, I have 4 screens around me. I've got this. And some of my stuff, I'm sure people would laugh at and think it's antiquated, but it works perfectly for me. So you run with it.
And if it works, it works.
Yeah.
So, Doug, I got kind of the same question for you since we're doing a New Year's show. We're facing the new year. I don't know. What are your expectations for this year that didn't happen last year?
I don't have great expectations for the year. Personally, in my own life and with our family, I have great expectations. I'm making my own destiny. There's a lot of cool projects we're doing, a lot of neat stuff we're doing, a lot of directions we're taking, and just a lot more family time. You'll notice a lot of my stuff. I'm even pulling back from the political theater a lot, but I still can't help myself sometimes because the stuff is just so outrageous. Sometimes I just have to I have to bring attention to this insanity. But even with that, there is so much nasty going on in we're talking about Ed Glazer. We have some ideological differences, and this guy he's coming onto your platform and he's espousing his views. I get haters all the time. I had somebody on another social media platform, not my own, infer that I was the guy that killed the hobo or the bum, whatever it was, that got killed outside the Umpqua Dairy a few weeks ago. That was by that Rob from Base and Tackle that films himself chasing hobos. First of all, I'm going to state for the record that that guy has a lengthy criminal record. He was a piece of garbage. Don't speak ill of the dead. He was already a piece of garbage. Now, I wouldn't have that festering piece of filth in my truck when he was alive, let alone when he was dead. So that alone absolves me from kicking his carcass out into the Umpqua. Why the Umpqua Dairy parking lot of all places? But that's going to be fascinating how that rolls out. But the fact that someone would say I'm probably the guy that did that. Well, if he was in my house and I caught him here at night, but I wouldn't have hauled him to Umpqua Dairy. I would have left them in my hallway and called 911. These people are insane. And I'm trying to I truly, we pull a Rodney King. Why can't we all just get along? I would love to get along with everybody. I would love to sit and talk about ideological differences. I'm not going to change anybody's mind that's really hard set. Nobody's going to change my mind because I'm really hard set on stuff. But it is such a rewarding thing to find that little piece of common ground. We can still argue. We can still, fight in the political theater and disagree on things. But at the end of the day, it's really cool when you can actually have an open and decent dialogue with people that doesn't resort to just pure hatred. And there's so much hatred. And you say what's going to change in the world stage or our nation stage in 2024, I think the hatred's going to grow. I'm seeing it. And the more President Trump keeps moving and moving and moving, the more hatred that keeps coming out towards it. I have despised leaders of this nation in the past. but never to a level that the left despises President. And they don't even know why they hate him so much for the most part. If you can articulate a real reason, like, cool, we could talk about it, but they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to listen, and they don't want to hear an opposing side. I love hearing opposing sides. Sometimes I think people are just Looney Tunes, but I'd love to hear it. But I think the hatred is going to grow. I think the angst, I think we're going to see more people having mental breakdowns on airplanes. I think we're going to see more shootings across the nation. I think we're going to see just more violence, even on a one-on-one basis. And the more people that are taking antidepressants and just stuffing themselves full of all kinds of drugs just across the board, I think it's going to change and become uglier and uglier and uglier. Stay strapped.
Yeah. And you talk about the drugs, the antidepressants. All of that stuff is ending up into our water and eventually getting into our drinking water. I was going to recommend the next time you go fishing, maybe, you should go with some Xanax instead of actual baits or something like that. I think you'd be able to catch those things because they're probably addicted by now.
They're used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're used to it. And they're saying, hey, we need some of that stuff. So, I can't believe people would need antidepressants. It's like, go for a walk where, maybe we're just spoiled because we're in Southern Oregon, but I go for a walk and walk around my neighborhood. I don't even have to go out in the woods, but I can if I want to. And it's beautiful. There's no reason to be unhappy. I don't get these people.
No, depression is a part of life. We're all going to suffer it at one point or another. We're all going to, whether it's seasonal, whether it's a loss of a family member, whether it's, but things on the political stage, they get people down. I mean, I find myself, watching the news and just getting down sometimes, but you have to push yourself through it. Now, I'm not advocating there's no use for antidepressants or any kind of drugs ever. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying I truly believe they are vastly overused because there's money to be made. There's billions of dollars to be made. Hey, I don't feel good because here's a pill. What? Here's a pill. Take another one. What? We're the most over-medicated nation on earth. I go to Safeway to buy groceries, and I'm not saying the people in line are getting stuff they shouldn't get, but it is a constant line of people that are medicated. And I'm not for a moment saying that these people don't need it, but we are a heavily medicated society. And when we start doing brain altering drugs, that's really concerning to me. A number of years ago when these mass shootings were becoming in vogue, and I hate using the term in vogue because they're never really a trendy thing, but let's go back 20 years, and you started hearing about them more and more, and a guy would take out his family, or someone would shoot up a shopping mall and get 3 or 4 people. What they were doing at that time, they would look into the person's history and be like, oh, he was on, what is it, RHR or RD, reuptake inhibitors, like a serious mind-altering drug, an antidepressant, and maybe they've gotten better since then. But I remember watching the news, and every time there was a shooting, it was like, holy crap, man. These people are all on the same drugs. And then, poof, they stopped reporting on it about 10, 15 years ago. Not a word ever spoken about it again. We have to find the common thread. And everybody says mental health, mental health, mental health. What about the mental treatment? I don't know. Right. That's my diatribe.
I completely agree with that.
How about
Go ahead, Rod.
How about the pharmacological industry that creates those drugs and owns all of the media through all of their advertising?
Yes.
And runs the whole program. That's why cure when you can continue to medicate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you talk about the over medication. They're doing this to kids who are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and they're putting them antidepressants. And I'm thinking, if you're 8 and you're depressed, someone needs to take you out to a ball game. You know what I mean? There's no need to put drugs on. Yeah, get them hooked and keep them hooked for the rest of their life. Yeah. And it also gives them an excuse to be depressed. But the doctor says it's clinical. And I just, like you said, I think it's way over medicated. I think there are legitimate uses, but not to the extent that we're using them today. And the biggest proof of this is that Oregon Hospital, OSU, is one of the top hospitals for treating young people going through the transgender operations. And they're pushing that now on kids at a level like you cannot believe. It's like, I'm sorry, 7 out of 10 kids are not transgender. And it's almost to that point now.
Are young girls allowed to be tomboys anymore? Do we even? And I'm not picking on anybody when I say this. I haven't heard the word tomboy forever. It's like, hey, I want a slingshot. Okay, let's go get you attached to you and get you some hormone therapy. Like, no, wait, maybe it just wants to be a tomboy. Maybe a guy's a little more effeminate than you expect him to be. Why does this all of a sudden have to be a life-changing, permanent thing? I don't know, man. That ain't right.
I had a sister, and we played G.I. Joes. Of course, the G.I. Joes would have to raid the Barbie Malibu house and, take the Barbies hostage and blow them up with our M80s. And, it's of course my sister would yell as their body parts are blowing everywhere. And it's just, that's what kids do. You know what I mean? And so there are some boys who are going to be more towards, not working on cars. They're not going to be mechanical. They're not going to be in sports. And we know kids like this. Doesn't mean anything other than that's not their interest.
Doesn't mean
let them be.
The blending of genders and the confusion of genders is a very specific part of a demonic agenda. Make no mistake. It's intended to create exactly the divisions and confusions in our society that it is rendering. And it's no mistake, no accident. And, the battle that we're fighting here is not flesh and blood, but it's against principalities and so there's only one way to victory in this, and it's through God's grace, and you know what, he's on his throne. But there's one more thing I wanted to circle back to.
You got it.
Thanks, Jen. To Ed Glazer, and that is, Ed and everybody who wants to believe the way that he believes, or whatever beliefs he has, every one of us is still created in the image of God and has the value that stamp puts on us. And so, Ed thinks that our lives are of less value than his own, I'm sure, but we don't share that view with him. So maybe that would give him pause for a moment to consider that maybe we value his life more than he values ours, and what the implications of that question might be.
That's a very Christianly thing to say, but I'm going to have to be the contrarian here and say I really don't value Ed's life. I really don't care what happens to Ed. And I love you, Rod, and I appreciate what you're saying, because that's something that I was raised to believe. You know what I mean? This is I had a grandfather who was very much in religion. All my uncles were very much into religion. And I don't know, as someone, maybe it's just not that, maybe it's the fact that I'm not a Christian. Maybe it's the fact that I hold different beliefs, that I just don't think that some people, I don't know, if I wouldn't want to hurt him. I wouldn't want to do anything to him, and I don't recommend anyone else does. But if Ed just happened to get slammed by a snow avalanche, it's not going to break my heart. And I hope you forgive me for saying that.
Well, that's not mine to forgive, Rob.
The true, right?
My rank, but no, I understand that difference, and that's cool. But
that's something that I always was impressed about Christians is, when I went to Citizens Restoring Liberty, we met in a church. It was majority Christians. You guys prayed at the beginning of the meeting, and you would pray at the end of the meeting. And I'm never offended by that. And yet there were people at the beginning who were going to these meetings who were offended by that. And I never got that. I never understood, why would you be offended by someone else praying? It's like the cross in Mingus Park. I don't understand. You're not a vampire. The cross isn't going to hurt you. So why is it? And that's why I hate the word atheism. I choose the word non-believer for myself, but atheism is almost become such a rabid belief in itself.
It's a religion. Atheism is a religion.
Yeah, based on the hatred of another religion.
Yes.
Well, the atheism is really a self-centered religion, where I heard it likened to this was a brilliant analogy. Being an atheist is like being an ant in the middle of deepest, darkest Brazil rainforest, and climbing to the top of a tree, the tallest tree that you can find, and coming back to your ant colony and saying, there is no such thing as Tokyo. I know, I've looked.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can you know what you do not know? How do you know what you can't see? I think atheism is actually, well, it requires a level of religious adherence that is self-contradicting. It is in itself a religion. Agnosticism, on the other hand, is a much more honest, I think, approach to your theology. If you don't believe in God, but at least we should be open to possibilities. But if you're so concluded that that's not a possibility, then that's probably an unfortunate position to take.
Yeah, I completely get that. And someone, like I said, I was an altar boy, and no, I was never molested because I was an ugly child. And I was a little upset about that. What's wrong with me?
Stop it, Rob! Stop it!
But seriously, I was an altar boy, and most altar boys, to contrary belief, were never molested. And I went to I was an altar boy for the Episcopalian Church, and it was something that I love the tradition. I love the tradition of it. I love the Christmas is a good example of that. Christmas and Easter are a perfect example of, and I'm a big fan of Jesus Christ. I'm a big fan of reading the philosophy of Jesus Christ, what he preached in his Bible. You take out the mysticism, you take out the supernatural, and you got a kick-ass philosophy there. This guy was incredible. He was fighting against kind of what we were fighting against. I mean, he was fighting against the Caesars, the Roman government that wanted to destroy his people. Moses is a good example of this. Moses coming out and leaving the pharaohs of Egypt is another good example of people searching for their own identity, their own freedom, and their own way of life. And this is what makes me mad when people say, we're fascist, you're a Christian nationalist. And I look at them and I go, well, yes, so what? So what if people are Christian nationalists? What's wrong with believing in what they believe in? Because if you look into the religion, it's really about fighting oppression in many ways.
And it's certainly not about forcing a religious view on any other person. There are social issues that become political footballs that have certain irreconcilabilities because of the difference in the philosophical underpinning that builds up each one of those sides of this. Like the abortion issue is one example of that. But in most things, in many things, we can actually really find common ground in ways that
like I said, going back to I'm not Christian, but I am opposed to most most abortions I'm opposed to. And it's because of the fact you're killing a baby. No matter how you look at it, you got to look at it as you're killing a baby, no matter how you spin the yarn that you want to spin. Yeah. And to me, people like Ed Glazier, they would call Doug Washington here a racist. They would call you, Rod, a racist. But yet, anyone who's fighting against abortion and is pro-life, they're fighting for the majority of minority kids in this country, because it's the minorities who have the most abortions. And it just blows my mind that they would say, well, you're a racist. Well, then why is it I want Black people, especially Black women, not killing their babies? That's what blows my mind about this. They're not getting that philosophy.
The word racist, the term racist and Nazi have lost so much power and so much steam over the years. Yeah. It's become a catch-all. It's just a shovel. You're a racist. You're a Nazi, without even really understanding what that term means. without even using it properly. They're rewriting the American lexicon. They're changing the meaning of words, which is just nonsensical. Come up with something original. Come up with something that actually really describes that people have that different viewpoint than you. But if they do, then they have to speak the truth, and then the truth they have to speak isn't as harsh as saying Nazi, as saying racist, all those things. It's insanity. It's insanity. I was kind of hoping the whole racist term and Nazi term would be gone by now, but they've just, again, that's just a really easy grab it out of the air quick. Well, you're a Nazi. I don't agree with you. It's ridiculous.
It's the only thing that they have, you know, because if you don't have the capacity to engage on a reasonable and you know, dialogue level, then, you know, that's what you're going to do. You just resort to a name call because it's convenient, and it fits the indoctrination, and it fits the culture that you're in, and you know. So
well put. Yeah, fits the indoctrination. I like that. That is exactly what it does, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's no bias like a self-confirming bias.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I'm right. I'm just telling you I'm right. So go ahead and believe me. I want to get back to the commissioners thing. You're going to be having an election in May, and this is something we're working out now with post-election campaigning. And this is the hard thing about primaries in this country, is that we're going to have Republicans fighting Republicans here in certain districts in Oregon. And you know the rules of campaign. You got to come out, and I always compare this to the boxing ring. You get into the boxing ring and you're going to take some hits, and you got to fight like hell, because that's the name of the game, is to win. And so we're going to be doing that because we've got several different challengers. In fact, Ashley Hicks, let me put this up there. She's running for District 1, the Senate of District 1. This is against David Brock Smith. And I like Ashley Hicks. She says, hello from Roseburg, Oregon. Happy New Year. And then she puts vote Hicks for District 1, May 21st, 2024. And I like Ashley, but I just don't think she's going to, and I may be wrong. I don't know if she's a strong enough candidate. We'll have to see. She may be surprising us. And there is another person that's going to be running for that district. But we have to beat the hell out of each other to get to the primary. And then as soon as we get through the primary, whoever wins in the Republican Party for those campaigns, then we start triggering on the Democrats and the third party people if you got a third party strong candidate. And as commissioner, there's one commissioner that's going to be up for re-election. That's Bob Main. And he is going to be facing two competitors. And both of them are very unique, very interesting. One is Drew Farmer from the Coos Bay City Council. The other is Chris Castleman. He's a good friend of mine. And I just hate these type of elections. The meanest election is the primary election, and I think it's meaner than the general election. And I thought I'd ask you, Rod, what is your opinion on that?
Well, generally, I totally agree with you that the primary can be really mean, and they can be very divisive and destructive to the unity where we should be building alliances. And I think that it's important in any case to campaign with that in mind, that, you know, when you're running against somebody on your own side, you don't tear them down. You know, it's now pointing out legitimate issues is fair game in the public sphere. But you know, respect and honor and keeping a view to that long-term unity, I think, is really important. Now, to the instance of the question of this particular election, one pivotal question that hasn't been answered yet is whether Bob's really going to run. So he's been pondering on that, and as far as I know, he hasn't made that decision. So
I heard he's going to make it soon after New Year's. He said he was going to come out and say, and I don't know. I know Bob, and I told him he should run. I think that, and here's my worry. I like Chris Castleman, and in fact, I'll probably support him through the primary, but I don't think he's a strong enough candidate to get through the primary. I think Bob will, or Drew Farmer will get that 50%. And I don't think any of them will get that 50%. And I think it will be a race between Bob Main and Drew Farmer if Bob doesn't win the 50% mark during the primary, because I think he's the only one who's strong enough to hit that mark. And that's just because he has a reputation here.
Right. I agree with that analysis. And so, you know, if Bob does decide to run, then, you know, that really calls into question. Well, it raises questions about, you know, what candidacies would be effective at what times.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
you know, we'll see what happens. A lot hinges on what he decides, what Bob decides. He's such a great asset to the county. He's really very good at his job, and I've learned so much from him. And I have just tremendous regard for his depth of knowledge and the way he conducts business. He's a good guy.
Bob's one of those guys who, I go back to that boxing ring. Me and him have beaten the crap out of each other in the ring. And yeah, I consider Bob a friend. He sends me messages. I send him messages, things that I think, you know, would advantage him, things he wants me to know and report on. And we've always shared that kind of camaraderie, so to say, where you have, you know, politicians who, you know, you get mad at and you'll just never talk to. And in fact, I want to thank you for coming on the show, Rod, because I was told when I lost my radio show that there would be no politicians who will ever come on my show again, or any podcast that I do, because of what happened to me getting kicked off of KWRO. And so that was part of the reason I liked having you on here, is because I wanted to prove them wrong, and I know how you like proving them wrong.
Nobody's going to direct me in that regard. I think that, you know, you perform a great service, and you're a great asset to the community, Rob, and you know, happy to support you in that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Doug, you wanted to chime in on this subject anywhere?
There's nothing I can add to it. What I'm going to tell you, though, I've been looking at your Rumble page while we're talking. You got a bunch of comments on there. People are grooving and getting into what you got going on here. You talk about Rob being important. He is, and you know, the whole debacle that led to him being de-aired, if you will. Maybe it's better in the long run. You know, it forced him into a platform like this, which is pretty swanky. You
Yes.
got it dialed in pretty good. But it's sad. The whole thing just made my heart hurt. It just did. The whole thing. It just, again, we talk about fighting. We talk about infighting. We talk about all that kind of stuff. And to actually get pulled off the air was, it was. I'm sure Rob's detractors are super excited about that and taking that as a victory lap. However, in the long run, I think with his following, what he has going on, with all the other people that, you know, people like you, Rod, like myself, that we're kind of all intermeshed with what he does to a degree, that it gives him that broader viewership. And in the long run, the messages he gets out, the information that he disseminates to the public will probably grow and become a bigger, better thing. And he is an important member of the community. There's no, and you don't have to be a Nazi to love Rob Taylor. You don't, contrary to what the left says. Important person in this area, and I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be here for your inaugural show. And yeah,
you know, Doug, the reason I wanted you on was because you do this on Spotify. Do you? And yep. It blows me away that the technology we were just talking talking about earlier, how you can just set up your own show. And my son has been telling me for the last 3 years, get off of AM radio, get off of radio. It's a dying venue. It's not going to be around much longer. And he may be right, because I don't, unless it's a specific show that I like listening to, I don't really tune into the radio. We've got Sirius on, and I've got an MP3 player that I play my music on. Heavy metal, I'm sure it's not the type that Doug Washington would listen to, but I get into my heavy metal and stuff, and it's a great escapism while you're driving your car. And my son has been telling me to do this for years, and I was so reluctant because I didn't know what it took to get into something like this. And I've been just immersing myself in all the different videos on how to do a podcast, all the different technologies and stuff. And I came up with StreamYard here, which I was talking to Doug about, and it was just incredible how easy this is to put this together. And I would encourage anyone, if you have information that you want to get out to people, this is the way to do it. Because on the radio, I paid a lot of money for that time slot. You know how that is, Doug. And, you pay the money for this time slot. I had a producer that I had to pay for and stuff. And then, driving back and forth to Coos Bay and stuff, all of that has been eliminated. And I don't have to worry about pleasing the FCC. I can cuss now. I can say shit. Yep. It's wonderful. I can say shit now. And I don't have to worry about the owner of the station getting mad at me. I don't have to worry about upsetting the advertisers who might get mad at me. And that was part of the reason I got pulled, is because, I had Cameron Langley, who did a petition against me because I told him to go wear a dress once. I figure if you're going to be a woman, you should try to dress like one. Right?
Okay, all kidding aside, I thought he did. Did he not?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. He's according to his Facebook page, he's on his way to becoming a woman. He's all in on the chemicals and stuff. But and one other thing was a port commissioner from the Coos Bay Port District was going to do a vendor, not a vendor, basically he was going to have a boycott of the radio show if they didn't pull me. And luckily that got kiboshed because it wasn't a good idea. I guess he figured it out. And then, of course, with the senator calling in and complaining about me, it was finally just the third time. And Mike Wilson just was, I can't take it anymore, I think, to the point where it just wasn't worth it to him. And I think he did me a favor. I think he did me a favor here, because this is a blast. I'm having a good time, and I don't feel inhibited by all the things that I was inhibited before by. And we haven't once had to take a commercial break. And it used to tick me off when I'd be talking to you guys and we'd have to interrupt for a commercial.
Yeah. And so really what this platform does, obviously, is it gives you the opportunity to just explore much greater depth in the questions that come up and topics that you want to discuss. And that's great.
Mm-hmm. I think AM radio, I think we've got another generation or so out of it. Maybe, and I'm not maybe talking, necessarily biological generation dealing with people, but, the next iteration of communication, podcasts are kind of taking over, obviously, as we see. But right now, AM is still a nice fallback. AM, FM radio, especially in large population areas. Everybody can kind of find it. Hey, let's listen to the oldie station. Let's listen to the talk station. And you can kind of have, guys in an auto shop or something like that. They got the radio playing. That is still going to hang on for a little bit, but I think it's going to just dissolve slowly and go away, and it will be gone.
Yeah, I think technology takes over other technology as time goes by and as generations come forward. And that's why I kind of like this idea, because the 40 and under crowd, they're already tuned into the podcast. I talk to a lot of kids out there. I call them kids. They're 30-year-old kids to me, and I talked to a lot of them, and they were all saying, we listen to the podcast. We don't even listen to radio anymore. And it's the guys who are 40 and over, probably 50 and over. We got to train them to take that smartphone and download those apps to Rumble, to YouTube, to Spotify, and all of that stuff, so they can figure out how to you can hook it to your truck now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can sit there and you can answer phone calls while you're listening to your podcast. And it's like, and I will have this on my website, the audio version, and people can check that out anytime they want. And they don't even have to listen to this live. They can catch it at any time. And and they can watch the video anytime, right in their truck as they're driving around. So I think this is just where it's going. I think this is where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And like you say, to have that on demand, we are an on demand society. Whether it's a young person with a video game, whether it's an older person with an old movie, we are an on demand society, and we demand now that we get instant gratification with our electronics, and that's what this provides. It fills that niche. Hey, I want to hear what Rob Taylor's doing, but I can't necessarily always listen to it when he's on. I get that all the time. Oh, the last half of your show, Rob, I'm always doing X, Y, or Z. Like, well, go to Spotify. It's really easy. But again, you have to train people. But the younger crowd, like you said, probably 40. That's probably the demarcation line. The over group has to learn how to do it.
Oh, I think we lost Rod. Maybe his phone went dead. Oh, there you are. You came back. Okay. One of the hard things I'm going to have trouble with, I was talking to you about doing 3H tree service. Where's 3H tree service? And we're going to be able to, the cool thing is okay, Matt Holman, I don't even think he's 40 yet. He just had a birthday. His birthday's on Christmas. Can you imagine? Happy birthday, Matt.
That's cool.
Happy birthday, Matt. Yeah, it's easy for parents to remember that.
Yeah.
I had a friend get married last night on New Year's Eve, and I thought, this guy's a genius. He's never going to forget his anniversary. I wish I would have thought of this. And so Matt from 3H Tree Service, he's already got this dialed in. Anytime you jump into his truck, he's already got his phone attached to his truck, and he's already into it. And so we did a test run, and he was out somewhere, and we got the signal in just as good as I'm getting you two guys in on your phone. So we're going to be able to do this from location where people will be able to go out there, and we'll be able to videotape when the people pull up and find Matt and win the prize, which, by the way, folks, that's going to be happening next week. Where's 3H Tree Service? That's all going to be happening next week, and we plan on doing that on a regular basis. And just for next week, we are going to be giving away $300. So you get ready. Yeah, dang.
I'm going to follow. I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm going to follow him.
You're not eligible, man. I'm
no.
My wife was saying the same thing. I'm going to go where he lives, and I'll just follow him that day. And I'm all, honey, it's your money anyway, so I don't know. I want to win my own money. But it's just really cool that you can go on location, and I can go on location, because this is another thing about StreamYard, is that I can just put their program on my phone, and at any time I can go live, and I can be out at the beach. I can be at one of the commissioners' meeting. I can do this anywhere, and then forward it out to YouTube and to Rumble. The only one person I'm going to have a problem with it, I can guarantee you, and that is Tim from Tom and Gigs. I mean, I don't even know if he owns a smartphone.
Like a flip phone?
Yeah, I think he's got an old landline that he talks on. I'm not sure, but it's going to be hard to get him trained to come on here and do that, because I do have a couple of sponsors that are hanging with me. I've got Ag and Appliances, Coos Ag and Appliances. That's Danessa Rains, and I have I'm sure. The guys over at the dispensary, our Herbal Choices, will be sponsoring me, which I've stopped smoking pot over the last year or so, and it's been a wonderful experience. Sobriety,
good for you.
Sometimes, and I may make a comeback. I don't know, but I'm still drinking once in a while, but I don't smoke anymore, and I rarely ever drink. So,
and I'm for my New Year's resolution, I'm going to stop smoking meth.
Oh, well, hey, that's great.
I'm
Since
kidding.
you don't
Not
smoke it.
exactly. Not I'm kidding. Never stop. I'm kidding what I ever did.
So Ed Glazier is going to take that little spot that you just said. See there, I
Yep.
told you he was a meth user. You know.
See, that should make him like me. That should be like,
Yes.
oh, he's one of our guys. He's a good
one
guy.
of our guys. I'm calling
Yeah.
him up, see if his is any better than mine.
I'm going to stop sleeping under bridges too.
It's funny. They legalized drugs in Oregon, and I told my wife, I don't even know where to get them. Where would you even get drugs? You're old when you can't even figure out where you would go.
Devil's Row.
Oh yeah, Devil's Row. That's true.
Cut my
And
cough.
yeah, we sent a couple of our guys over to Devil Rose. Talk about basically it's an open air drug market and a prostitution place. And we know this because I sent some guys in there, and within 5 minutes they were able to make a drug deal, which was so funny. They come up and go, "Oh yeah, we're getting some dope," and I was all, "Well, what kind of dope?" I don't know, dope, man. You're supposed to figure it out. It may just be pot and legal. And so, but we found out that they were, dealing drugs there at Devereaux, and there were girls who were offering themselves for a little piece of the dope we were going to get. It was like, wow, this is bizarre. Before we go any further, I have a special guest who's coming on, and you guys might know him. His name is Mark Thielman. He was a governor's candidate, and I'm going to add him to the screen right now. Hey, Mark, how you doing, man?
Hey, everyone. Good to see you, Rob. Good to be here.
Good to see you. Did you have a good New Year's Eve?
Oh, I had a fantastic New Year's Eve. You bet. Good time with family and friends.
Were you able to stay up till midnight? Because at my age, I have a hard problem with that now.
I went to bed at 11:31. Therefore, I would have plausible deniability for my teenage and 20-something kids to continue on.
Nice. Very nice. Doug Washington, a.k.a. Base Tackle Rob. We don't want anyone to know. But Doug Washington here, he's on the screen with us, and I got Commissioner Rod Taylor on the screen as well. But Doug, he did something incredible last night. He was out in the bay, over in Coos Bay, and just before midnight, he caught a fish. And we think it was the last fish anyone caught in 2023 because nobody else is crazy enough to be out at the bay near midnight. So,
Well, I'm here.
Probably last legal fish caught in America.
Yeah,
last legal fish.
2023.
That's awesome. I flushed the toilet.
First one of those in 2024.
Last flush of 20. We don't know.
Yeah. We don't know.
Yeah.
So, you're still campaigning right now. Well, tell us about your campaigning.
Well, I mean, I'm campaigning and not campaigning. So what I've been doing is, obviously, I've been running Battleground Oregon and as executive director. And, of course, we have a lawsuit that's been taking up a lot of my time. So I've been campaigning around gathering plaintiffs. So let me know if you guys are interested. And Kotek, doing Governor Kotek and Levon, the Secretary of State, over the illegal surveillance of everyday Oregon. I don't know if you guys heard. It's been quite a shock to the state system. They're so upset by the unifying power that this lawsuit is beginning to have in our conservative and Republican Party. So we even have rhinos signing on to be plaintiffs. This is amazing. And people working together in ways that we never even imagined. I didn't anyway. We were able to raise money rather quickly, which is refreshing, and to get posted. So we just filed for an injunction. Now I'm full assault by. So suddenly they're bringing up old ethics charges back when suddenly they got to investigate now. And I've had all these weird cyber trollings on my websites.
You're breaking up, Mark.
All right. Maybe I'll hear me now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I've turned slightly. I have one spot in my house that I did. So, but so it's been kind of interesting couple of weeks to find out that the government doesn't follow its own rules, and we know that from 2023, it's been a year of the loss of all. Now we're going.
Mark, every other third word is not coming through, and I don't know why.
Here, let's try this.
Oops.
We'll try taking the picture.
You there?
Am I here?
Okay, try that now.
Okay. I thought maybe I'd take the picture off. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, good. I'll go incognito. No photo. So what I was going to say is that what I'm gearing up for is for the full force of the Oregon state government, obviously with the federal, to come out in standard open to suppress the right of anyone that disagrees. Does that sound familiar?
You're still breaking up, Mark.
Unbelievable. Right. Hang on. Okay,
This
we'll
always
try
happens
the
on
last.
lunch.
I've got one more spot. Can you hear me now?
Okay, try that.
Okay. I don't know where I was. I was going to say, I think we can look forward in 2024 to a much more aggressive government attack on people that they believe disagrees with the government. And I don't know. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're coming in good now.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had to run outside to the last spot. I know I get a good signal. So anyway, the one of the things, I don't know if you guys caught this, but there was a records request done by Representative Ed Deal, who's not known as being, an overly tenacious conservative, but he's conservative. And he got information from the Secretary of State that verified that they had been surveilling people like you, Rob. Did you know you were surveilled in 2022 by the government?
No, I didn't.
Oh, and I know that there was a kerfuffle.
Well, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, I think it had a lot to do with some of the things you've experienced. And so another one that's fairly high profile that was surveilled because he talked about a tweet that he had sent out about the FTX money and out-of-state monies influencing Oregon elections. And his name was Lars Larson. You guys know him?
Yeah.
Well, Lars was surveilled as well. So anyway, we debuted this just a couple weeks ago. And
What?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, he was shocked. It was a what? Like he's shocked that Lars Larson was,
All of this is blowing my mind.
Yeah, well, even worse is he was dubbed by the artificial intelligence, the AI system, as high risk because of his words, which I think really shocked him. And what that means is that he would, if that system is up and running, he would automatically be referred to law enforcement as a tier 1 threat to democracy.
Jeez.
Can you believe that? And this is going on.
No, this is incredible.
Well, it gets better. It turns out that system was never turned off, the testing of it. And so you can imagine us filing the injunction and how inconvenient this is for Governor Kotek. So I'm looking forward to 2024, but it's a time where we have to get ready for the fact that there will be no accountability. We cannot rely on the government following its own policies and rules. And that is hard for me to wrap my mind around, because we kind of count on that we kind of expect that there's things that our local government officials can't do. But what I'm finding out through this lawsuit is they do what they want and rules don't apply to them, but they do apply to you and I. So I'm excited about 2024. This will be a make or break year. The only other big headwind for me that I think everybody should be aware of is that now that we're having all this issue about Trump being kicked off ballots and certain political parties and partisan judges and Secretary of States in Maine, for example, who, although she did recant, it shows you what they're capable of. And the last time we had a presidential candidate where states started removing him from the ballot, that was Abraham Lincoln. You guys remember that, right? The Civil War followed shortly thereafter.
Rod might. He's pretty old.
Yeah, but what I'm concerned about and what people need to understand is that we have almost zero chance, almost no probability of having a unified presidential election coming up in 2024. And that's what's got me a little concerned. That's why I'm pushing the lawsuit. That's why we're trying to curb this government excess. And what I'm really worried about is if Trump wins the election, we're going to have hell to pay on the left, as you guys know. And if Trump loses the election, there's going to be hell to pay because people on the right are going to say it was illegitimate as well. And this is the legacy of Tina Kotek Gavin Newsom, and many, many others. So 2024, it's going to be a breakout year, just maybe not in the way we were hoping.
Well, that's not very hopeful, and I'm glad you came on, because this is exactly what we wanted to hear, and I knew this is what was going to happen, because we've got 4 people on the screen right now who, all of us, even though our personal life may be looking brighter and we may be doing better things in our personal life, it sounds like the political trail that we're getting to go down is going to be full of intrigue and possible violence if this doesn't stop.
Yeah, and think about it. Think about what will happen if, let's pretend the election is completely legitimate, and most reasonable people agree it is. We're still going to have to contend with Antifa and riots and chaos in the event Trump wins. And in the event Trump loses, we're going to have to deal with people literally saying, I am checking out of this system. This government no longer represents me or my vote. And I think those are 2 very dangerous tenets. And I don't see our government, especially in particular our state governments, coming out being concerned about that and addressing that. And they should be doing that. And the way you do that is you have very transparent forensic audits of state elections. That's the solution. And as you know, they passed a law to almost make that illegal here in Oregon in this last session. So I'm going to be curious to see how all this goes.
Now, there's a lawsuit in Douglas County that was put up by Terry
Newcastle,
yeah, who she wants to go back to a one-day election with the ballot and all that good stuff. And they denied her, which is weird, because I thought there were only 3 reasons they could deny an initiative, but they denied her the ability to put that on the ballot, and it went to the court case. Are you involved in that?
Yeah, I've advised on that case. So I got involved early on when they were basically told that they couldn't file the case. And what I explained to Terry and her team was that the state statute, the Democrats screwed up. They never changed the original state statute. They just passed this law by rule during COVID that the Secretary of State suddenly had power to redirect county election clerks or election offices. So in other words, she said, everybody's going to do ballot counting this way. And if you want your funding, you have to do it this way. So what the government in Douglas County was saying was, well, if we approve this and the voters approved it, it would conflict with this rule, which they were calling a law, and therefore it has no, quote, legislative interest. And so that was the confusing piece. But it turns out that, sleight of hand, a rule is not a law. See? And that's the powerful thing. And that's ultimately what moved that lawsuit forward, because the statute is very clear that local election, county election clerks can move forward petitions like that, and that individual counties, according to Oregon state statute, can make those decisions. So I'm really excited to see how that comes about. I don't think they're going to be treated very fairly in the courts, however.
Right. And we're hoping they are, because as soon as they do, if they win, at least passing out the initiative and getting signatures, we will start that here in Coos County if the commissioners don't do it themselves. And we got a commissioner on the line. Rod, this would be something you'd be interested in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's really just a fascinating case, Mark. Rod Taylor here. And what I was curious on this surveillance that was undertaken, do we have any indication about what kind of justification they may have tried to assert, or what authority?
No, that's a great question. So what they did is they had put out an RFP, a request for proposals. They paid for the implementation of the system as a, quote, temporary test. And the reason they did it that way is that it didn't trigger the funding threshold that would have required them to go public and inform the public about what they were planning on doing. So this was government sleight of hand. So what they did is they got it, they then tested it as a test. So really none of the information, we're not going to use any of this information, AKA, right?
Right.
And then they came back the next year and they did another RFP saying, now we're going to fund the whole system. But you see, the Secretary of State wrote a letter when the lawsuit was first filed, and she wrote a letter to Rep. Deal saying, quote, "There's a lot of misinformation about this whole subject. We don't even have the system up and running. We haven't even awarded the contract." And she completely lied to the representative, because on the contrary, they had the system already up and running, and it was still delivering weekly reports. And so it shows you the absolute depths that our leaders will go to. They lie with impunity, and there is no accountability for it until this lawsuit got filed.
You know, this is just absolutely incredible. When and that word misinformation, when I go out there and I tell people the story you just told me, that's what I'm going to hear back from disbelievers. The first thing they're going to say, "Oh, Rob, you're just spreading misinformation. This isn't true. They're not listening to us." And yet you've got this in a public records request. This is their documents you're proving this with, correct?
That is correct. And it helps when you have a representative who's willing to ask the proper questions. And representatives can get information much quicker and much cheaper than you or I. So a little trick to your listeners: got a friendly rep out there or a senator who's willing to make public records requests on your behalf, know that you will have expedited response, and it's a whole lot cheaper. This was a deliberate tactic that we were using under the battleground emblem, because I learned this years ago. So once we got a representative to sign on with the lawsuit, not so much as a plaintiff, but as a partner, I knew things would move much more quickly. So you guys could apply that down in Coos Bay as well. You have some favorable reps down there who I'm sure would help you.
Yeah.
Have they applied this? Have they gone after anyone who's been on this list? Has anyone been targeted yet besides just the list itself?
Well, we disrupted that. So because they were, quote, just piloting, testing, right? So they needed the RFP and the contract to be awarded so they could implement. Now, Washington State, they did their piloting and they did their implementing about 6 months ago. And there are individuals in Washington State who have had sheriffs knock on their door, law enforcement and FBI reach out to them because of things they've posted online or said on their podcast. So this is the brave new world we can look forward to. There's 4 other states, and Oregon is the only one where citizens spoke up and tried to stop it. We're the only state that's filed a lawsuit saying this is overreach.
I'm sure you remember when Ceausescu, when they took him down, the dictator of Romania, I believe it was, and the first thing they did was they opened up the surveillance vault where they had all these cameras hardwired. This was, much more difficult to do it back in I think it was in the early 80s that they took down.
Right.
And it's just massive that we were so shocked by that. And yet we're doing it on a huge, grander level through technology today than whatever Ceausescu could have even imagined then, right?
True story. And it's shameful, though, the way that they're going about it. If what they were doing wasn't wrong, then why did they purposely construct their request for proposals to avoid going to the public and saying, we're doing this for the greater good. This will assure election integrity and all the things that they had talked about for wanting to do this in the first place. And the thing is, they know exactly what they're doing. They know it's not legit. That's why they had to try to slink around and sneak this, by the public without the public paying attention. And it worked in Washington State. It worked in California, and it worked in New York. They're trying it in Colorado, but in Oregon, it was detected, if you will, and we filed suit. And now we filed for an injunction, and I'm looking forward to going to court for the oral arguments on that, because we're seeking injunctive relief. But more than that, we're asking for a jury trial, and we're asking for punitive damages, because there is no accountability for this government, but there has to be. And one of the ways you can do that is having a jury award, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars against a government. That tends to light things up, as you know.
Yeah.
Doug, Rod, do you have any questions for
I mean, I knew it was bad. I knew this system was operating to some degree. I didn't understand the nuances of it. It's we always use the term Orwellian. I think we've taken Orwellian to the next level. It's disheartening. I talk about disheartening. I talk about infighting being disheartening. I mean, that is a forceful, pointed. Do I use the word attack on the state's own citizens?
That's exactly what it is. And remember, radio, text messages, phone conversations, all of that is on their list of things that they, quote, get to surveil without your knowledge in order to protect democracy and election integrity. And you'll see that election integrity is going to be their new mantra moving forward, because
right.
The whole issue is that they've been taking a lot of hits nationwide. They've lost more cases than they were intending. Not that they lose them all. And with the Biden situation being so poor and Trump being up in the polls, all it does is amplify their politicization of the courts. And so that's another thing we can look forward to. And and hopefully we'll have a U.S. Supreme Court that will see through that and put a stop to some of this malarkey.
As if this wasn't enough to hear, I'm just curious, is there, we've talked about election integrity. We talked about their surveillance that they're doing. Is there anything else you're doing that's going to make us feel better?
No, like I say, I'm under a lot of attack on a lot of fronts. So part of this is I was going to be running for Secretary of State. I decided to focus on this lawsuit. And the reason is that I saw the immediate change in the government's behavior when we filed this lawsuit. And I've been around these folks and worked with them for, in politics for well over a decade. There's something very, very interesting and trying with this thing. And so I'm putting maximum amount of effort into building the coalition and the alliance on this lawsuit. And we'll be doing an amendment and adding plaintiffs. So let me know if you guys are interested. And there's declaration forms you can fill out. And I'll just do a plug. It's battlegroundoregon.org. People can go to that. There's copies of the lawsuit and the injunction posted there. And Stephen Joncus is our attorney. You can go to Joncus, JONCUS.net. That's another place you can get some of the up-to-date stuff and read up on it. It is very interesting stuff. But I think we landed on the soft underbelly with this issue. And to me, it's very damning. Like I told Lars Larson when we debuted this, it was interesting. I said, Lars, how can anyone have any confidence in the word of our Secretary of State when she so clearly, lied about this system not being up and operational and the contract not being awarded when that turned out to be so clearly untrue? And this is what I want people to understand. Without confidence in the integrity of our vote, we don't have a democracy. We're Venezuela. Okay?
Right. And let me ask you, if I'm on the list of people who've been surveilled, do I have any greater standing than the average citizen, or are you still okay with average citizens going ahead and putting that forward?
Well, yeah, it's an all of the above deal, but obviously you would carry a little more weight because you're a public figure. You have a higher public profile, and they don't like your speech. Let's be real. Hence the surveillance. See,
Right.
But there's room for everyone. If you feel, and this is what people need to understand: the damage they are doing in the state of Oregon to the very mail-in ballot system they claim is secure and are trying to protect, and everything they do is making the situation worse, not better. And my point is, it's because they know their system is garbage. They know it is an insecure, highly manipulable system. And this is my whole point. And the goal is to put them to the fire, put their soft underbelly to the fire, and get them to finally just tell the truth. We need to have transparency. We need to have real security. and we need to have some reform with our mail-in balloting system here in Oregon.
Wow, this is some incredible information. This is just astounding. You know, I figured I was on a list, but when someone actually tells you they've done a public records request and your name was on a list, it just puts the reality right smack across your face. And so I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And it's good luck, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, God bless you. And thanks for having me on. And if anybody wants to, if people want to contribute, because obviously it takes money to fund these lawsuits, they can donate at battlegroundoregon.org. Just had a couple more donations today. People chiming in to support the lawsuit. So no donation too large and no donation too small. But to me, this is a lawsuit of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's a beautiful thing.
It sounds like a beautiful thing. And I think you might be actually successful in the Oregon court, because I'm not sure judges or juries like the idea of their government spying on them in the way they're doing in this case.
Yep. Yeah, it's very difficult to rationalize away the obvious breach of free speech rights.
Well, thank you, Mark. I'm going to get you back on here in the future, and because I want to hear about this, but I'll contact you privately and talk more to you about this. Okay?
Hey, no problem. Hey, thanks, and God bless you guys. Happy New Year.
You too.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
You know, it's interesting because this is targeted predominantly towards conservatives. Let's be honest. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And what people on the left don't understand is they're looking at this going, yeah, screw these guys. Let's put the screws to them. Let's find out everything. But what they don't understand, that if that balance of power shifts to another party and those protocols and those systems are still in place, that same surveillance infrastructure will be now used against them. Like, if it's not good for one group of people, it's not good for any group of people. And that's part of that schism in this country, where it's us and them, it's us and them. There's no more just it's America. And the left has to realize that same apparatus, that same surveillance apparatus, could be very easily used against them should the tides turn. It's not good for anybody.
It will be. And I know people who are on the left who, were very moderate Democrats, or, Democrats in name only because they were blue dog Democrats, who are now awakening to this nightmare that's happening in our country. And I can see this very easily, because after they run out of us, who else are they going to pick on? Fellow communists.
Right.
No,
it was a Nazi Holocaust, not a survivor. I think he was a preacher, and he talked about it. And I'm going to paraphrase so bad. When they came for the gypsies, I wasn't a gypsy, so we didn't stand up and speak against them. When they came after, the heretics, I wasn't. And when they came after the Jews, and then they came after me, there was no one left. I need to. That's a horrible paraphrase, but I need to look that quote up again. It's moving, and I want to say it was a Christian preacher. It was or a Catholic priest. I'm not sure that said that. And it's you hear what we just heard, what we just heard from Mark. And it really puts that into context. And that's frightening as all get out. We talked earlier about not taking antidepressants. I'm going to go get myself a bottle of them later and pop half of them, because that was a total downer segment, Rob.
Well, I was on the list, man. I'm sure you're there too. I'm going to request that. I know Ben Edel, and I'm going to make a request and see if he'll send that to me so we can check it out. Rod, you're an insurrectionist. You're an actual insurrectionist. And what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so-called insurrectionist for insurrection. That has been just an amazing crafting of that particular fable about what happened on January 6th, 21.
Yeah.
And, every time I've had an opportunity to one-on-one talk to somebody who has the view that it was an insurrection, and they have that proscribed mass media take on the situation, and I have a one-on-one conversation and tell them exactly what my experience was, they have come away with a different perspective on what happened that day. And so that's gratifying. I just, I would like for that to be more widely applicable. But
and that's some of the legend itself has taken a whole life of what happened and what you did, and that's why I've given you ample times to tell that story on the radio, because it just wasn't fair. One of the, the thing about you getting arrested, you didn't even get arrested at the event. You got arrested at the hotel. Would you explain that one too? Because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions.
Yeah, well, it centered around a case of police brutality, because on our way from the Capitol, in order to comply with the curfew, we were separated. The two parties that were there, our two main groups, and my friend Scott had been walking through a grass area, and there were some women on their knees praying, and some police in riot gear came through with batons, not batons really, he said pipes, which anyway, but sweeping these women and hitting them with these metal baton pipes, and he had that on video. So later we were back in front of the hotel, on the hotel property, just watching the police coming and going and swarming. And Scott showed me this video on his phone, and we recognized it immediately as extraordinary police brutality. And so we thought that the police would be interested to see this video, and there was an officer right across the street. And so I took the phone and walked across the street to show it to the officer. And I held the phone out in front of me and had my other hand out in plain view. And he said to me that I was in violation of curfew. And I replied that I wasn't trying to get away from any place or anything like that. I just wanted him to see this video of police brutality. And the next thing he said was, "You're under arrest." So then I spent the next 45 minutes to an hour handcuffed in the street with two other guys that they managed to grab as well. And they then put us in a paddy wagon, took us about 20 minutes out of town. And I spent the next 3 hours in line with my hands cuffed behind my back, in a line of about maybe 80 other individuals. And curiously, every single one of those individuals handcuffed in that line for curfew violations, every one of them was a white male. Every one.
That's an amazing story. I mean,
extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. So it didn't look anything like the demographic I had seen throughout the day, which was all of us. There was people of all kinds of descents there, but not that night. So anyway, after about I don't know, 5 or 6 hours there, around 3 o'clock, I was finally afforded the opportunity to pay my $25 fine for curfew violation, and summarily dumped out on the street. And fortunately connected with somebody else who I was able to ride share an Uber back, and got back into the city and walked about 10 or 12 blocks back to the hotel, and walked.
Where is the jail? What do you mean you got back to the city? Is the jail outside the city, or?
Well, they didn't take us to a jail. They took us to a police training facility outside the city, where there were like storefronts and a school front and a business scenario where they do tactical training. So that's
wild.
Us.
That's just wild. I would be worried. I'd start thinking, are they going to use me for a target? They're going to have me run through this barrage of gunfire to see if I can make it. Only the survivors will get set free.
Yeah, one thing that I noted was that there was a really a significant level of disrespect and kind of dismissiveness. I picked up a number of different officers that I interacted with, just sneering like I didn't have a right to have an opinion. So anyway, yeah, whatever.
Well, that's the story I wanted to hear. And like I said, there are so many people out there who just come up with this garbage. And I've heard so much garbage about how you were armed there and you weren't armed, and they tried to put you in a video showing you were armed, which you were not. And then, and of course, that becomes legend in itself. You can hear people. You did go in, but only to return a stolen picture that someone had taken. But then that story and yarn gets taken out of context. Then, of course, the fact that you were arrested, but arrested after the event, trying to contact an officer and show him information that you had attained while filming people, or you're, Scott filming while you were at the event. All of it just gets to be, a Mary Jedry tale of a nightmare. And that's what people think of you all the time. And it's just, and I get it too. Doug gets it all the time. And in fact, that's why he calls himself Doug now. It's much easier. It's probably now that you're under surveillance.
Well, it's funny because all these local crackpots, they're like, oh, he's trying to hide his true identity from us. No, I want you to know my true identity, but you're just too mentally deficient to actually figure it out. So I had to make up a pseudonym so that you wouldn't get us all confused.
Yeah,
I never hide who I am, but crazy times.
And the funny thing is that you never go out and really hunt bums the way like Matt Wilbanks goes out and gets them off of property. That's not something you do, right?
No, but I had a couple really good videos when we first started really becoming aware of the problem, and I just wanted to kind of prove a point. So I went and I talked to like 5 in one day, and that's the one in particular. And like every one of those 5 did not want a job. Because like, hey man, you want a job? I don't want a job. I got my check comes tomorrow. And most of them were child molesters. Most of them had sexual predators, particularly against children. And we verified all this as the day rolled on. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm right. I'm not just and it's like, am I just talking out of my butt here, or should I actually? I'll put my feet to the ground here and see if we can prove this. And it took less than a day to realize that, most of these guys, they're felons, they're bad felons, they don't want to work, and a lot of them are child molesters. A lot of them.
That's one of the good things about the Coos County Neighborhood Watch. If you put out that information within minutes, literally minutes sometimes, they will tell you who that person is, where they live, what they're, they have got it down. Matt Wilbanks and his crew over there, they're badass. And I've gone out with him a couple of times to see what goes on. And it's, I come from a really major city in New Mexico, and we won't even get into that. But it's, you wouldn't think that this is happening here in Coos County, but Bum Bay, you know what I mean? It's
Bum Bay, Bum Bend, Oregon. Yep.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. And, I don't think people are getting how bad the situation has gotten here. And, it's here. I got the picture for you there. There you go. Visit Bum Bay, Bum Bend in Oregon today. And
I think that's my meme. That was mine. I made that one. I'm pretty sure I made that one.
Yeah, that's yours. That's one of yours. I stole it. And the city of North Bend was more worried about the sunflowers on the corner than they were about the bum who was sleeping right next to the sunflowers. Yeah. It's insane. There's a website we were talking about, the feral human ones. Anyway, I was going to try to pull it up, but not while we're talking. That going back to the Umpqua Dairy, that guy I don't know if he was killed there or his body was rolled out onto the parking lot there. But there was so much outcry. This poor homeless guy, and you get his rap sheet. Like, again, I keep going back to this. The guy is just a feral, fetid piece of garbage, and people are jumping. Oh, he didn't deserve this. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But there's good people out there that need protection. There's good people that need, people to care about them. Not these types, and I don't understand. And if a guy's down on his luck, if a guy wants to improve himself, if a guy's not a criminal, man, I'm all for helping him. But unfortunately, my contact with this class of folk has been that
most of them are criminal. And
Most
not petty crimes either. Not petty
No.
stuff. We're not talking
No.
trespassing.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, the one that you captured that day was talking about he was a transplant. He wasn't even from Coos Bay.
Yeah.
And and to talk about the stories, we actually helped a young man get out of Coos Bay and go to Florida. And we were accused of offing him. They said, "Oh, you guys killed that guy," and we're like, "No, really, we gave him a ticket, and we should have filmed it, but we didn't think people would actually, go to that lengths." And he came back, due to the social services here are so much better than what they are in Florida. Yep. And so he came back all the way across the country, and the first thing we did, see, he's alive. It's absolutely nuts what they were going to. Guys, I think we pretty much ran out. Unless you got anyone have anything to say about the new year, the past year?
Just stay positive as best you can. It's kind of, it's always dark times, whether you look at it from a scriptural standpoint, whether you look at it from a political standpoint, no matter how you look at it, it's always dark times, but there's a lot of goodness. There's a lot of decency. And I'm always willing to reach out to people that are on the other side of the aisle, so to speak. I like helping people out. You know what we did? We did a thing. We gave away a bunch of crab over Christmas. My family and I went out crabbing. We caught as many crab as we legally could, and we gave them all away. And we did like a little drawing, and then I gave them some of the neighbors and stuff. And it's just like, I don't want to give to the junkie who's pooping on the sidewalk, but I like helping out people that are willing to, they want to improve their station in life. They want to improve their lot in life. I always tell people on my show, be good to your neighbors, be kind to your neighbors, look after each other. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless America. We have the best place on earth to live right now, and we have to protect it. And there's always going to be this going on, no matter what. There always has been since the beginning of this nation's inception. But it's kind of a little bit darker times now, and I think we have to be a little more vigilant.
And by the way, thanks for the offer of the crab. Me and my wife were just nearly jumped in the truck and took a trip to Coos Bay, but
I'll get you some. Probably next week. Weather looks better. As long as the crabbing's good, I love sharing it with people. I do.
You got a deal. Rod, anything you want to put in before we get out of here?
Let's move forward with an eye toward unity, toward grace, and toward wisdom. Let's embrace this coming year and make absolutely the most of it that we can toward the cause of freedom and equality for all people, not anybody special and not different, just everybody the same, because we're all the same. And and so that's my prayer and hope for this year coming, and hopes are high.
That's like going back to biblical terms, love thy neighbors, you would love themselves. And I always say that's because you want your neighbor to have as much freedom as your neighbor possibly can, because why? His rights are my rights. And I want that guy. I'm a selfish bastard when it comes to rights. And that's why I love my neighbor, and I want to protect his rights as much as possible, because I want the same in kind, which also tails into the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have them do unto yourselves. And as an objectivist, I look at those moral homilies from the Bible, and they're correct. They're absolutely intelligent, and they're correct 100%. And now, to go from the Bible, I did ask all of you to have a drink ready. I know, Rod, you were going to have a spirit. You were going to have water. How about you, Doug?
You said a toast.
A toast, yes.
That's what you said.
Yes, we're going to make a toast.
So I made a 2024 toast.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Well, here's to the new year, guys.
Cheers. You know how hard it was to make this? I had to toast it. Then I had to cut out 2024 in tin foil, put it on top, and take a blowtorch to do that.
I was going to say, did you get a blowtorch and go to town on that sucker? That is hilarious.
That was clever.
That was clever. Well, gentlemen, of course, we'll get you back on in due time. Rob, Doug, I want you to do the best you can with your show. I hope you all the successes on the radio. I hope you all the successes on Spotify and doing your podcast. Do you hit Rumble?
I did for a while, and then I got away from it, and then now we're in the process of getting back to it. In this new year, we've got re-releasing a bunch of stuff, getting a little more jazzy with things, doing more cool stuff, and stuff we've been talking about doing for years. But now I kind of have the time, so to speak, to do it. And as our brand and who we are grows, we're just reaching out to a lot more vectors.
I noticed you went like viral. You got like over 35,000 likes, or I don't know how it goes on your page.
I hit over this year. I hit over 900 million people at one point or another. This redneck reached over 900 million people over the course of the year. Like some stuff, I'd look at it like, oh, cool. Hey, like 13,000, cool. Then I wake up the next morning, 2.5 million. Wow, we had stuff we were hitting. We hit 98 million or 89 million on one post. We hit 37 million on another, and it all adds up. And we had that quick growth. But then I said some stuff Facebook didn't like, so they did that to me, and they just stopped me right there. The more you learn about Facebook in particular and all the social media groups, the more insidious and nasty a machine it is. It is like they make me sign stuff on it that say, hey, you can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. You can't explain how our monetization works. And here's a little secret. I'm not on their platform right now. Their monetization is different for everybody. When they send you that list of rules and regulations for Facebook, it doesn't mean anything. If they like you, they push you to the front of the class.
That's how I feel sometimes. It's like I've got over 4,000 friends on my Facebook page. I'll put up a post and I get 3 likes. It just doesn't seem like something's not quite right there. Yeah.
They're suppressing you is what they're doing. Shadow banning.
Yeah. And that's why I like Rumble. And in fact, when I go back, I can guarantee you I'll have 10 times as many people on Rumble as I do on YouTube. And that's just bizarre because I have more subscribers on YouTube. So someone explain this to me, and I don't need it because, like you said, they're just clamping me down. They're just putting their thumb
censorship.
Down on me. Censorship, serious censorship. Rod, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
God bless you guys. Happy New Year. It's been a pleasure to be on, Rob. Thanks for the opportunity. Doug, good to see you. And
good to see you, sir.
Yep, right on. And let's move on, upward and onward.
Aye.
All right. You guys have a good one. Thank you very much for being on.
Take care. Thank you, sir.
All right. You don't know how much it means to me to have good friends like that, especially when you go through a disaster of getting your show canceled. And by the way, I'm not mad at people like Mike Wilson who did this. I mean, I'm not happy with him, but I'm not one who holds grudges, I guess I should say. And but I do think that we deserve better politicians, and that's why I'm going to fight against politicians I don't like. I'm going to expose them the best I can on this show, and I'm going to fight for politicians I think who should be in office. That's what I did for Rod Taylor, and I don't always agree with Rod, but I still support him, and I think he's better than the alternative. The alternative was Melissa Cribbins, and she's nothing but a Democrat establishment politician. And we need to get rid of this establishment, no matter whether they're Republicans, no matter whether they're Democrats. So that's just what we got to look forward to in these coming up elections. Remember, in May, no, I don't know the date exactly, but in May, we have the primary coming up. And then in November, we're going to have the general election. And because Trump is in the election, I can guarantee you it's going to be one hell of a time. And if you keep tuning in, and I ask you, please share this link, share this video with people, and let them know that there are people here in Southern Oregon who are fighting for this, who are never going to stop, who we believe in our rights and be damned the consequences. I don't care what Secretary of State list I end up on. I don't care if the FBI is watching me. I don't give a damn anymore. Come and get me. If you want me, come and get me, because that's what it's going to take to get me off the air. You're going to have to drag me out of my house before I go. And I'm going to go swinging, so I can tell you that. And I don't give a damn who knows, and I don't give a damn what the consequences are, because I believe that every human has a natural right to exist and natural rights within that natural right to exist. You have a right to be, and you have a right to live your life the way you want it because it's your life. So we will be. So like the show, if you're here and you're listening to the show, I want to thank all my sponsors: 3H Tree Service, Ag and Appliances, Coos Ag and Appliances over in Myrtle Point, and all the others who are very special to me, who stood through me through thick and thin. They're my friends. They're not just sponsors, and that's why I love them very much and appreciate what they've done for me. And like I said, I'm going to fight for their rights, everyone's rights, as much as I can in this county, as long as I can, because that's just what I do. And tune in. Tune in. We will be here every Monday at 3 o'clock. You know people who are patriots. You know people who are interested in local government. Tell them 3 o'clock right here. I'm going to have the same guest that I had on before. You know, it was funny. One of the guys from the radio station told me, well, now they're going to blacklist you. The politicians will never go on your show because they're going to blacklist you. Nobody's blacklisted me, folks. Like I said, I just had Mark Thielman on here. I had Rod Taylor. Nobody is going to stop these guys from going on the show. I may not be able to get certain state representatives or certain state senators to come on the show because they're mad at me because I expose them for who they are. I don't give a damn. And I don't give a damn if they're Republican or Democrat. We're going to get people on here, and I can guarantee you know who will be on here are the people who are running for those people's office. When there are people who are running for those offices, we're going to have them on this show. We're going to have Ashley Hicks on this show. We're going to have Todd Vaughn on this show. If Mark Thielman was still running, we would have him on here too. So I just want you to know, we're going to kick ass and we're going to take names, and we don't care who gives us grief about it, because that's just what I believe and that's where I stand, folks. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until next week, 3 o'clock Monday on Rumble or on YouTube at Rob Taylor Report, I want you all to remember, carry on and keep carrying on, and carry on, Coos County, carry on.